heard a lot of people say that this episode reminded them of Castlemania, with the three pairs each having their own subplots. But I actually thought this episode was more like The Best Night Ever, in the sense that the build-up throughout the episode, with the different plots gradually becoming more and more intense, was quite good, until it just peters out to a kind of nothing-type ending with a kind of weird moral. When I re-watch The Best Night Ever, I actually find the middle part painful to watch because I know there is no payoff to it. There is no moment of triumph at the end that makes all the suffering the main six go through worthwhile. They just sort of shrug, say, oh well, never mind, and leave it there. So too with this episode. It was a major improvement on Scott Sonnenborn's previous outing. Ugh. But there was still a real lack of substance or meaning behind a lot of what happens here because of the lack of any real payoff. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's start from the top. Right from the start, the dialogue was making me cringe, with Pinky and Twilight spewing out exposition almost non-stop for the first minute and a half. There was also a sloppy nature to the way Fluttershy goes off with Rainbow. She says she needs to help her, but why? Keep in mind, this is before Rainbow knows about the Collector wanting the Orthros. At this stage, it's just a simple case of trading what she has for the book, so Rainbow can't have been thinking about how she's good with animals. Why not have Rainbow go find her once she knows about the Orthros? Or better yet, just have Fluttershy ask Rainbow if she wants to hang out at the exchange. You know, because they're friends. Rarity and Applejack hanging out together makes more sense as they had interest in the same types of items. Though I don't know if I really agree with their plan that they can just get what they want by just having a lot of stuff to trade. I mean, what if all the stuff they have is junk? This subplot was a clear callback to Look Before You Sleep, with a rift forming between the two of them because they don't see eye to eye on things. And that's bad news for me, since I felt Applejack and Rarity's interactions in that episode was the worst thing about it. Finally, you have Twilight and Pinky in what I found to be a pretty pointless subplot. Aside from just another chance to see Pinky being Pinky. It seems once again they want to show us that Twilight isn't interested in the fame part of being a princess, which we kind of already knew. Oh, and also Spike is trading his Power Ponies comic. And that's it. Seriously, I got really excited when they showed that right after the intro. I thought maybe the disappearing comic from the end of that episode was going to come into play. But no, nothing happens. Most of the enjoyment I got out of this episode came from little moments of humour, like the way Rainbow and Fluttershy glued the chalice back together, only to find that the guy selling chickens was going to break it anyway. Or the line,
sorry, Valley says no.
Applejack and Rarity's subplot actually had an interesting setup. Applejack thinks something is valuable because it's old, while Rarity thinks something is valuable because it's rare. Rather fitting given her name. But it's wasted as it quickly descends into the farce of them just arguing over who the better friend is. I thought Fluttershy and Rainbow flying over the top while this was going on was pretty funny, though I do kind of wonder how the guy at the Discord lampstand could have disappeared on his break in the whole 10 seconds between Fluttershy leaving and the two of them returning with the chicken. I do also think it's cool how this pony is disabled and yet they don't draw attention to it, showing that disabled ponies are just a normal thing you get from time to time. In fact, this is an interesting episode to watch visually with all the different kinds of background ponies and different things going on in the background. It's a shame they didn't give the same attention to the main plot. What's going on here? Oh, Applejack and Rarity are still arguing. Meanwhile, Pinky is still trying to sell Twilight's books. Whatever. Oh, here's something. Rainbow and Fluttershy got the Orthros. And once again, this did actually seem to set up an interesting dilemma. Does Rainbow make Fluttershy go stay in Manhattan for a while for the sake of a book? But it turns out to just be a standard and kind of obvious friendship is more important message that gets resolved within about a minute of it being brought up. Why didn't Rainbow at least ask Fluttershy how she felt about the situation? Twilight decides she wants to hold on to her books just because of the nostalgia they have, I guess. Okay, but what about making more space on your shelves? And Rarity and Applejack get each other a piece of junk, her words not mine, and a brooch that's exactly like the one she never uses. Are they taking the piss out of one another and they just don't realise it? So what's the moral here? Going back to The Best Night Ever, I always thought the moral was another problem with that episode. I thought it was going to be about how sometimes things won't live up to your expectations, but the ending seems to suggest that you shouldn't even bother with big events. You should just hang out with your friends like you do every day. Almost like it's going beyond saying friends are important, it's saying friends are the only thing that matters. This episode is similar. It seems to be suggesting getting items you want doesn't matter, you should just hang out with your friends. Why couldn't there have been more of a focus on Spike, the one character that appeared to actually get a good trade, and maybe explain why he had the right idea and the others didn't? I'm not sure if maybe they were trying to say that you should be thinking about your friends when you make trades? Who knows? Overall, there was a lot to enjoy about this episode. There was a lot of good humour, the visuals were nice, and there was a lot of rewatch value to this one with all the stuff happening in the background. But the plot is just so poorly structured and uninteresting. The subplots all have good setups with no real payoff, and the moral just doesn't make much sense. Very much a guilty pleasure episode. Oh, and for the record, I actually did like The Best Night Ever. Why didn't Rainbow at least ask Fluttershy how she felt about... Lord, shut up.